All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this focus group AI event jointly organized by the European Digital SME Alliance and AIT Digital. This event comes at very critical times for artificial intelligence development in Europe, and indeed it's meant to provide an effort to support the compliance of tech SMEs to the Artificial Intelligence Act. As by now we all know, the Artificial Intelligence Act is the first comprehensive framework that will shape the development and deployment of trustworthy artificial intelligence in Europe and beyond, and it categorizes AI systems on the basis of the risk they entail, and it foresees strict requirements and obligations, especially for the category of high risk AI system. The artificial intelligence law has particular focus on small and medium enterprises with many provisions that are tailored to these companies and that include a number of tools that could help their compliance. At the same time, at Digital SME, we are very much aware that tech innovators across Europe and small and medium innovators, especially, flags to us that the cost of compliance and the burden of compliance to the AI Act is very substantial, and it risks to be much overburdening than initially expected as per the European Commission impact assessment of such costs when the Artificial Intelligence Act was first presented. So, it's important to have this discussion because innovative SMEs, tech SMEs, are the best chance for Europe to become an artificial intelligence continent, which is what it is in the European Union ambition to put the continent at forefront of the global artificial intelligence race. So, if we are to build a continent that is boosting its capacity to develop artificial intelligence technology, to deploy and adopt artificial intelligence across industrial sectors, we must make sure that digital SMEs and tech innovative companies in Europe have all the tools available and possible facilitation to comply with the law, with artificial intelligence provision, and that this compliance is minimized such that the efforts of those companies can be put on innovating on artificial intelligence, on developing, even in Europe, those artificial intelligence models that can enhance European tech sovereignty and put Europe as a leader on the global AI landscape. So without further ado, I think we have a packed agenda and very interesting discussion today with several tech experts and leaders in Europe. And indeed, I'm pleased to give the floor to Loredana Bussegnan from Digital SME, my colleague that is co-coordinating with me the Focus Group AI and project manager with us at Digital SME. Loredana, over to you.
Thank you so much, Antonio. Hello, everyone. Indeed, maybe before we start the discussions, I would like to give a brief overview of the webinar and what we're going to discuss today. So the webinar will kick off with a panel discussion on AI Act implementation for SMEs, featuring insights from the experts that are joining us today. This will be followed by a presentation of the AI conformity tool, and then the session will spotlight practical compliance solutions with presentations from Modulos and Awesome Compliance Technology. The webinar will conclude with the Q&A session, so I encourage all participants to take the opportunity to engage directly with the speakers using the chat here or the questions and answers box, and we will try to answer to all of your questions. So I would say we start the discussion. I am very happy to be joined by a series of experts today, namely Jennifer Woodward, VP of Artificial Intelligence at Logically AI, Emilia Cantar, Chief Data and Artificial Intelligence Officer at Black Swan Lux, Tiago Guimarães Moraes, PhD Fellow at the Law, Science, Technology and Society Research Group at VUB, who is joining us with the support of the European Digital Innovation Hub sustained at Brussels. And of course, my colleague Antonio will also join us in this discussion. So thank you very much for being here. And I would like to start with a more general question, because like Antonio was mentioning, the EU AI Act is one of the most significant regulatory developments in the recent years, and it presents both opportunities and challenges for businesses of all sizes. So in your opinion, what do you think are the requirements of the AI Act that impact the SMEs the most? And maybe Jennifer, I will start with you, as you are also here with your hat of a representative of an SME.
Yeah, thank you so much, Laura. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Yes, it is the key question, right? So in terms of the impact of the AI Act on SMEs, obviously there are lots of pros and lots of maybe questions that we should be considering. I think in terms of compliance, it's really, what this compliance burden is going to mean for small and medium enterprises. Obviously, things like performing conformity assessments and making sure that you have to, basically do all of this post-market monitoring, all of the types of requirements that we are seeing come through the Act. They set up some interesting circumstances for SMEs, because obviously we don't have oftentimes, in-house counsel. There are costs associated with these types of audits. There's a lot of processes and infrastructure that goes into, for instance, ongoing compliance and monitoring of things like, AI systems. So I think that is one of the main topics, is how we can make this compliance lighter somehow. And I know that the Commission, the AI office is looking into this, but it really is something that we need to have a dimension that is in line with the size of the companies that are building these types of technologies. So as Antonio noted, really the power of becoming an AI leader in Europe, becoming AI leader, is in kind of the hands of small and medium developers. And we really do have a lot of talent here, but we need to make sure that the regulation, which I do believe is absolutely necessary, let's say, because this regulation is set up as a product safety perspective, from a product safety perspective. We do need the regulation, but we need to ensure that it is completely in line with the reality of everyday developers and everyday tech companies, also those downstream providers of AI models. Another thing that I think is important is that, when the AI Act was conceived, it was conceived in a very different time. And things, as you know, are moving very, very fast these days. And we need to make sure that this is a living document, that this is actually something that is constantly consulted on. And I think right now the Commission has done a really good job of having a very transparent process and consultation, going through a very thorough process with the working groups. But we need to ensure that the regulations actually keep up with the pace of development, both in terms of being able to make sure that the product safety piece is resolved, but also to ensure that we're not holding back developers that are, making breakthrough discoveries or developing systems that are really, really important, that are going to help us build and preserve this AI sovereignty for Europe, which is what we need in the face of these larger, Chinese, American, and other huge developers who we're competing against.
And maybe now I would like to go to Emilia to see what is her opinion, because she is working indeed a lot on the standardization part, which is crucial at the moment of implementation. So Emilia, what is your opinion on this?
Thank you, first of all, for the invite and for this meaningful initiative. I come with a slightly different perspective. Of course, we all have different perspectives as we all have our own operational view, and I will share more from the operational view. Again, I think that Jennifer is completely right. The legislation is needed. Why is needed? We have methods which are stochastic by nature, so you need to have some regulation to counter the risk or to mitigate and to master those risks. Then we realize that, of course, there is an impact of AI on society. And this impact in Europe, considering that we have more than 90% of the companies which are SMEs, can happen only for SMEs and with SMEs in mind. What I have engaged since 2017, 2018 as an SME, it was to build standards. As I have identified that one of the frames that we do not engage with, let's say, industry best practice or standardization, it was the cost which was needed in order to put those standards into operationalization, and for an SME, which became prohibitive. And then we have a dream which we make practice, isn't it? Let's make standards which work for SMEs. It's not only for AI, there are many other areas. But especially for AI, we took the example of the cybersecurity with the ISO IEC 2701, and we started developing, first of all, studies. What will be the challenges of applying standards to achieve compliance? Where will the consultancy costs, additional consultancy costs, will come from? And for that, we had also a little bit of support from the European Commission, because besides the legislation, there is the regulation 1025 from 2012, which says that technical standards can meaningfully support regulation once they are harmonized, and they can be directly used to achieve compliance with the text of law. And for that, we received in 2021 requirements. And I will just mention those requirements. What are the technical requirements that any SME, which is now on the call, which is out there, will need to implement? These 10 requirements, they are not new. Technically speaking, conformity assessment as a framework is the access to the European single market. So this is the requirement number 10. Then we have requirements on quality management and risk management, which is the case for any product which is developed for the European market, but with the AI specificity for AI systems. And then we have a bridge for the standards with existing regulation, like General Data Protection Regulation, Data Act, and we have a requirement which is on data quality and governance, which is requirement number 2 in this list of 10. And then we have cybersecurity requirement, which is the relation with the Cybersecurity Act. And we are building now the standards to bridge with conformity assessment for cybersecurity. And then we have what is new for AI. And if you are already developing IT systems, might be new to you. There are these 4 layers of trustworthiness, which are transparency, robustness, human oversight. And then you have all the aspects which are related with those. So if I would be to transpose, where do we stand? We are developing currently the standards. There will be an inquiry phase. And on the inquiry phase, everyone is, of course, invited to participate. And we are passing this standards. We do hope it will be in June. We'll pass them to inquiry. So the main ones which will go to inquiry soon, if you would like to follow up on that, please feel free to engage also with Philip. He's a great representative also in the GTC 21, in the Science and Electronic Technical Committee 21. We have the quality management, risk management, trustworthiness is already in phase 2, and conformity assessment. So these are concrete standards. And if you are following those technical specifications, normally you obtain the presumption of conformity. So they are really useful instruments. How they can support you. The standardization, if you have already the standards, you can reduce your cost. You know exactly what technical specification you need. Where your contributions are needed. we are providing also a risk catalog. This catalog, of course, is not exhaustive, but if you have some risks in mind that you find are relevant and they should be there, or you have risks that you think as an SME you are not able to tackle, and there should be a mention, like Jennifer mentioned, there should be a specification for SMEs. This should be reduced. Please consider that June is a good moment. Of course, these standards, they apply for everything which is not GPAI. For that, we have the code of practice, and myself and Jennifer, we are involved, and Antonio, of course, is leading the coordination on that. And there you can see different guidelines that apply for GPAI. So if you are not in GPAI and you are in this context, please have a look at the standards and consider them as a good instrument. We do hope potentially in the future access to standards, at least at national level, should be available for free. For example, in Luxembourg, we have some booths where you can consult the standards for free. So that will drastically reduce, and I think we'll see some important tools later on that also from Philip.
Thank you very much, Emilia, for this very useful overview of the technical requirements. And finally, to conclude on this part of the discussion, I would also like to hear from Tiago, because he works a lot on the research side. So I wanted to hear from his perspective what are the most impactful parts of the AI Act.
First, thanks for inviting me for this relevant talk, and just like following on Jennifer's and Emilia's thoughts, there are actually a fractal of elements that have to be considered when thinking about the AI Act and how it relates with SMEs. And Emilia just touched on a very important topic, which are the standards, right? So if you look in the AI Act, you can even see that there are a specific provision on the article for facilitating for SMEs, and the saying that the member states should also facilitate the participation of SMEs in the standardization development process. From my perspective, and to complement the discussion, I'm going to focus on another topic which is also very relevant for SMEs, from my understanding, which are the regulatory sandboxes. But before mentioning them, and also thinking about the different provisions that exist in the AI Act that can impact on SMEs, I also want to call attention for some specific legal requirements that we have, for example, for high-risk AI systems, and more specifically, the ones in Article 10 and 15. And why I'm mentioning them. So Article 10 is about data and data governance, and Article 15, among several things, it has also the issue of cybersecurity. And what's interesting here is that when you look to this two set of requirements, you can immediately connect with other regulations that are already in place or already in discussion. It has been mentioned today about the Cybersecurity Act, but we also have the GDPR. So whenever personal data is involved in the processing or the training of these AI systems, or in the outputs that these systems will provide, if there's personal data involved, you should look to the GDPR. And what does it mean is that when you are thinking of which provisions of the AI Act you're going to prioritize, I think it's a smart move, especially when considering that SMEs have more challenges on resources, is that they should look for these provisions that are easily overlapping with other regulations. These probably are the ones that will call more attention. And here comes the sandbox, which I think it's something that can be very useful. Right now, we are seeing all member states are dealing with this challenge because this is actually an obligation of the AI Act to the competent authorities. So every member state will have to establish by August of next year, a regulatory sandbox at national level, which does not mean that they cannot not also establish in more local levels and also doing consortiums and joint partnerships, so cross-border sandboxes. So what we're seeing here is the potential of like a growing environment for sandboxes all over the EU, which can be a very interesting opportunity for SMEs to be engaged in those, because one of the key aspects that literature has showed about one of the important outcomes of the sandbox is one of the important incentives is that the sandbox offers a lot of regulatory guidance, which usually brings some support, especially like for SMEs that are usually under resourced for doing compliance assessments. They can have this extra layer of comfort and support. So in this sense, the sandbox looks into something that should be really on the agenda of startups and other small companies. And what is interesting here is that there is also some expectation that specific rules of support for SMEs will be part of the sandbox. There's language on the AI Act on that. And maybe just to finish my comment here, because it's also important to consider what sandboxes are and what they are not, is that the regulatory sandbox does not mean that physical data infrastructure will be provided by the regulator. Actually, this is not the rule, rather than the exception. The regulatory sandbox is more about this regulatory dialogue, these conversations that will exist, which is already a very important source of saving costs for several companies. But also, and I think this is something important to see, is that we should also look not only to the tree, but the forest. And what we've seen in the EU policies for innovation is that a whole innovation ecosystem is being built. So we also have the digital innovation hubs, the testing and experimentation facilities, several EU funding programs, and actually there is some expectation that these different elements will be able to come together and connect better. And of course, there's a lot of the role on the member states and the competent authorities, how they're going to make these connections. But of course, there's also an importance of the SMEs asking for and looking for these connections, because in the end, it will be also this perspective from the SMEs, how they find useful that test and experimentation facility can connect with a regulatory sandbox, is that when the regulator will pay more attention to make these connections work. So I finished my commentaries here, but from my more personal perspective, I see a lot of potential in everything that's being built, and definitely SMEs have an important role in this innovation ecosystem that's being built in the EU. Thanks a lot.
Much, Tiago. That's indeed a very interesting idea to maybe to wrap it up. Anto, do you have any other thing to add before we go forward?
Yes, I think I would like already to acknowledge that all the speakers highlighted crucial points in terms of implementation with respect to the SMEs. Perhaps an angle that I would like to stress, and that I think also on the basis of our membership is still not fully reflected in the way the obligations and the guidelines and obligations are laid down by the European Commission, is a very important principle that is established within the AI Act, that is crucial, that it should see application, and that is the principle of proportionality. which means that basically, especially for providers of general purpose AI models that can be as well SMEs innovators, the obligation should be commensurate and proportionate to the type of model provided, which means that for SME, there should be a more proportionate and facilitated approach to comply with these obligations. And indeed, while there is a small subset of general purpose AI models that are categorized as systemic risk, there are smaller general purpose AI models that will likely not qualify as that are coming from European SMEs innovators, and in the implementation of the AI Act, in the guidelines that are being issued, including via the Code of Practice, but not only. Just yesterday, we learned that the European Commission put forward some guidelines on the definition as well of general purpose AI model. It is crucial that this principle is taken into account, because while in many discussions where we've been, we have seen that SMEs are often considered only as downstream providers, and it is true that in many cases, indeed, they are like that. There are other SMEs, and we should encourage more and more SMEs that are already model providers, that are already developing models that are based in Europe, and therefore, for those type of innovators, the principle of proportionality must be applied in order to actually minimize burden or compliance and encourage that more and more SMEs in Europe embark innovation on AI models. And in this direction, only with this direction, Europe can really meet its ambition of becoming an AI continent and enhance its tech sovereignty in the area we are.
Great, thank you, Antonio. And since we have been discussing quite a lot already on the AI Act requirement, my next question would be, what are the first practical steps that SMEs should take to assess their systems compliance with the AI Act? What should they focus on? What is your advice? So maybe I'll go back to Jennifer to hear from her first.
Sure. I think the most important thing is that SMEs get familiar with the SME provisions within the AI Act, obviously understanding what category they fit in terms of what sort of provider they are, whether or not they're providing or developing high-risk systems, what that actually means. So I think it's really diving deep into, as Thiago was saying, there's lots of materials out there, lots of resources, and getting their feet wet with that sort of information. I think it's quite daunting for startups and smaller companies when faced with something like this. I mean, when the GDPR came out, everybody, I think it was something that was a similar kind of effect. Like, we don't really know what to expect. There's a lot to kind of dig into if you're not a legal expert. So I would just advise companies that are either developing AI or using AI systems to really just get associated with the simple versions, let's say, of the provisions of the AI Act, and really understand what compliance means on a basic level, and then tap into the resources that the Commission and the AI Office is offering up in terms of being able to support companies in that compliance journey. And then also agree with Thiago about the regulatory sandboxes is also a really excellent resource for SMEs specifically. It's a space where they can learn, where they can be supported. That would be my advice.
Sure. Emilia, what would be your advice?
Again, I will take the operational perspective, really pragmatic. I think the first step that any company needs to do is to look at the portfolio program projects and do a filtering according to the risk classes. And I think the best way to do that, we have the luxury of having a tool developed by European Digital SME Alliance together with EIT, which is for free, which is available there, and which any SME could use. And according to our experience, it's very accurate, and it goes really to the level of detail that is needed. You can take all the portfolio, you can take a program, you can take projects. You might need to do iterative steps, but you can have at the end an idea where are the classes of risk that you need to tackle ex ante. Just as a parenthesis, the tool is already used. I had referenced it in the past. And now we have in Luxembourg a regulatory sandbox. We have already the appointed authorities for market surveillance, and they are using in their training and they are referencing the tool that we have developed. And I think we'll hear more from Philip. Another advice, of course, in line with what I have mentioned previously, is afterwards to look at standards which could be useful. Why standards are relevant? Because standards, they englobe the expertise and experience of all the industry, large and small. And they are best practices. They are the bottom-up approach. We share best practices. What is agreed as common best practice, it becomes a standard. So if the law comes top down, we are coming with the standards bottom up. And you need to find your middle ground. And the middle ground is applying the standards which are relevant to you and which will support you in the use cases. That would be all on my side for this particular point.
Thank you very much, Emilia. And indeed, we will have the presentation of some tools and resources in a little bit. And finally, maybe Tiago can also share his advice for companies.
Yeah, yes, sure. And I also think it resonates a lot with what Emilia and Jennifer just said. Maybe then just to complement, definitely doing this exercise to identify what level of risk your AI system is prima facie, as we say, right? At a starting point, looking to fit is important, so you can have a better idea of which specific provisions of the AI Act you have to be more concerned with. But as a general thumb of rule, I really like the idea of adopting this by design approach. And I think a particular famous one as the privacy by design, the data protection by design community, the approach that have been promoted by the privacy community. And the idea here is really considering as you're developing your systems as a startup, you really have some specific values that are very sensitive in this agenda of AI governance being taken in mind. And definitely privacy is one, but we have discussions on the transparency of the system, the fairness of the system. And I'm not saying this is something easy, and it would be very beautiful if you could just make the system require it to be privacy by design or be transparent by design. But what I mean here is that having this design thinking, it's very important. This critical assessment is important for you to like prepare a system that will be way more ready to support the innovation, but also in a responsible way. And I think that's the general idea. Maybe the last comment, which also connects with my first speech, is that trying to understand better what are these different tools that exist that are being provided in the EU for support of innovation. And as I said, the regulatory sandbox for sure, but also the innovation hubs, the experimentation facilities, the AI factories. I think it's very important. And I think there's a lot of information around, and SMEs should just like dedicate some time to look and understand better what are these tools and how they can facilitate whichever product or service that they are developing.
Thank you very much, Tiago, and Emilia and Jennifer for this very valuable advice. So this is where we will close this part of the webinar. Antonio, would you like to add anything? Final thoughts?
Well, just to thank the speakers for these thoughts that we have well noted, and to also mention that we will continue to basically support as much as possible our community in the process of implementation of the SME. Also monitoring closely the guidelines that are set to be published by the European Commission on the compliance with the relevant obligation that will enter into force from now until August 2026, when the AI Act will be fully applicable. And on top of this, we will also engage with the European Commission to demand that more pronounced effort also from their side, and also in support with national authorities in the member states is given in order to make sure SMEs have the widest and easiest possible access to all the material that can ease their compliance, such that indeed the focus can shift from compliance to efforts to innovate on AI models in Europe.
Great, thank you so much. Thank you to the experts for their contribution, for the discussion. And since we discussed about resources for SMEs, next we'll take a closer look at a practical resource designed to support SMEs taking their first steps in their compliance journey. So I'd like to give the floor to my colleague Philippe to present the AI conformity tool.
Thank you very much, Loredana, for the kind introduction. So I'm Philip, also from European Digital SME Alliance. And in this short presentation, I will give you insights into the AI Act conformity tool that we co-developed and should serve as a starting point for AI companies, in particular SMEs, to kickstart their compliance journey. The tool development was a collaborative effort between EIT Digital through their EIT community on artificial intelligence, and on our side through the European Digital SME Alliance with our partnership with Small Business Standards. And of course, our collaboration extended further to our associated experts, one of whom who was really valuable is also sitting today in the panel, which is Emilia Sansa, who gave a lot of contribution to the tool development. So the main idea is, of course, to comply with the AI Act regulation. I will not lose too much time explaining about the AI Act. We've heard a lot about it already. It's one of the first comprehensive pieces of legislation to regulate AI globally. But the important thing is that it sets the requirements that businesses must comply with. So it affects the operation, it affects how businesses develop their solutions, it affects every asset of business. And especially for SMEs, which are lower on resources, this can be a dramatic change in how they operate. So it is important to be ready to comply. And one of the main features of the AI Act is the approach of trying to balance out the regulatory requirements based on the, sorry, I think my slides are not progressing. Okay, we're back. So sorry about that. One of the main features of the AI Act is the risk level approach. So the idea is that depending on the impact that the AI system can have on the society, the risk it poses to the well-being or the human rights, in a balanced way, the regulatory requirements should follow that. So we have these 4 steps risk assessment, where we have on the highest level of risk, we have the unacceptable risk systems. Those are the systems that will be outright prohibited by the AI Act. So those can be systems such as social scoring systems or surveillance and biometric identification for law enforcement. So those kind of systems are outright illegal by the European Commission. Next in line, we have the high risk systems, which pose some level of risk either to safety or to health or to human rights in some critical domains, which is some of those are healthcare, transport, infrastructure, justice systems, and so on. So in those kind of cases, the regulatory requirements will be stringent. So the companies will have to comply with risk assessment, high quality data, human oversight over data, transparency, quality monitoring systems, and so on. Next, we have the limited risk systems, systems which have the transparency obligation. So here the requirements are less stringent. There are systems like chatbots, for example, or deepfakes, where the users of the systems have to be made aware that they are in fact interacting with the AI system. So that's the notion of transparency. And finally, we have the minimal or no risk systems. Those are the systems that will be freely usable under the AI Act. So they will not have any particular legal obligations in terms of requirements. So the purpose of the tool that we co-developed with EIT Digital was to provide the first steps on this AI Act compliance journey, in particular for SMEs, which have traditionally less resources. It should provide them with an initial guidance on the AI Act requirements, and importantly, it should initially place them on this risk category pyramid that we just seen. So by determining the level of risk that their system poses, they can better embark on the journey of regulatory compliance. This can in turn save them time and cost because the assessment itself, it's very short. It only takes 5 minutes of time, and it's also adapted based on the system. Sometimes it takes much less. The tool also provides the users further info on the steps and the resources. So the user, in the end, receive a report. And besides guiding them through the compliance steps that will be necessary, it also provides them some valuable resources. Of course, in this kind of tool, it's impossible to encompass all the possible scenarios and all the possible use cases. So, of course, this tool has to be considered as a guidance and not as a legal advice. So let's take a look how it looks like in practice. This is kind of like the backbone, the background of the tool itself. It's composed of specific targeted topical questions, and it's done in a very efficient way to make people only answer the questions that are really relevant for their level of risk. So, for example, if some have a very wrong idea about the AI Act requirements, and maybe they're developing an AI solution just for their own personal use without any implication of ever putting it to the European market. Those kind of users will be made aware already in the first questions that the AI Act will in fact not apply to them, because this is not a commercial activity that they're using the AI system for. Similarly, if someone wants to develop something that will be a prohibited system, a system with unacceptable risk, in the following questions, those kind of users will be made aware that that kind of system will not be legal, and they don't have to go through all the other more specific questions that only concerns people with low to high risk systems. For people who are classified as high-risk systems, the users will then proceed to some steps of already compliance steps to make them understand what will be their future steps and where they will need to work on to be able to comply with the AI Act. So each question that is in the tool focuses on the functionality, application domain, or potential impact of the AI system. Here, there's just one of the example of the questions, which focuses on the Annex 3 of the AI Act regulation, specifically on the high-risk systems. And then, based on the answer of the user, the following questions go more into detail about the system or explore other levels depending on their answer. Upon completing the assessment of using the tool, the users receive the final report to their email. And in that report, they get listed the exact requirements which will be needed in order to comply with the AI Act based on the risk level. And then additionally, they get support for conformity to standards. So there are resources on where they can seek the recent news and recent resources on the development of the current standards for the compliance, in particular in JPC 21. Then they have links to practical guides and other relevant resources, including the existing standards on the topic that can be a good starting journey for the SMEs to understand the topic. So there's something that the users, of course, get in the return for using the tool. What we get in the return is individual data points. Of course, the responses are anonymized when we analyze them. We just make some group level statistics on the data, mostly to create the distributions among the categories. So that makes it better for us to understand what are the actual needs of the SMEs, what are the actual needs of the companies who are using the tools, how many are in the low risk category, how many are in the high risk category, and based on that, we can shape the way we act, the way we can help the companies in the future. I've seen that was one of the questions in the chat about the topic of do we know how many companies are high risk and how many are low risk? So basically through the tool itself, we will also get some insight into that and to better understand the ecosystem and act accordingly and help companies accordingly. So the AI Act conformity tool is available. Here you can assess your current or future AI systems that you have in mind. You can test multiple solutions, but you have to do them in a sequence. So for one particular AI system, you have to do the assessment on its own, but then you can repeat the assessment as many times as you like for as many solutions as you have in mind. Thank you very much for your attention. I'm open for questions, and I want to thank all the partners that helped in the co-development of the tool. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philip. Are there any comments, questions, interventions from the colleagues? No, not yet. Okay, great. So as we mentioned, the conformity tool is one first step for companies that they can take on their compliance journey. We will now hear from two pioneering companies who will share their solutions and services to support with AI Act compliance. So we will hear from Modulos, represented by Elena Maran and Kevin Szawinski, and from the colleagues at Awesome Compliance Technology, represented by Bigster. Elena, Kevin, the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. My name is Kevin Shavinsky, and I'm the co-founder and CEO of Modulus. So at Modulus, we've been working on an AI governance platform that's designed to help organizations meet the requirements of the EU AI Act and, of course, other emerging technical standards and regulations around artificial intelligence from around the world. The challenge we're addressing is this transformation from the landscape today faced by organizations, particularly SMEs, where they have new obligations, they have new regulations, and their existing tools and processes are not matching those new challenges. And of course, the EU AI Act has this, I think, undeserved reputation of being something that's tough to deal with for SMEs, and in particular, that's going to be very expensive for organizations to deal with. And we want to help organizations move from this before state that you see here to the after state, where compliance is easy, where we use AI technology to accelerate it and unlock the innovation from European SMEs, from European countries. And embrace not just, the minimum requirements of the act, but really put trustworthy AI front and center. And that's essential not just for things like market access, for meeting conformity and being on the market. I think it goes beyond that, because in this now fracturing world with trade wars and conflicts, the standards set by the EU are going to be an advantage for those organizations that adopt responsible and trustworthy AI early and signal to their customers, signal to their users that the AI products and services that they're offering are in line with the EU AI Act and are trustworthy and are tools that are ready to be adopted. AI governance, people kind of mix up often the terms governance, compliance, etc. AI governance has a number of important components, and we actually were looking at the AI Act and trying to translate it to software. We took a careful look at that. And so there's key aspects here of how, as an organization, you distribute the responsibility of dealing with the various aspects of AI. There's also the AI lifecycle management. AI, as we all know, is a very dynamic technology. AI systems can undergo rapid change and have new requirements and new risks as you move from development to deployment to monitoring. There's also the emerging field of AI risk management. How do you assess and quantify the risks posed by AI systems? This is a new field and something we're very hard at work to provide new tooling so that organizations can quantify the risk they take with their AI systems. And then, of course, there's a responsible AI development. This is clearly outlined in the AI Act. It has to do with security. It has to do with interpretability and explainability, and it has to do with ethics. It has to do with fairness and bias. So these components make up AI governance, and they come into the compliance alignment. So you have regulations and technical standards, you have the AI Act, you have the other technical standards, and you also have your internal policies, how you as an organization want to embrace AI, use AI, what limits do you set yourself? And all of that flows into, as was already mentioned, of course, in this webinar, the conformity report or the audit or the certification that can demonstrate to the world, to your customers, to your users, that you've built something that's trustworthy, reliable, and good to use. And with that, I hand over to my colleague Elena Moran, who's going to show you what all this theory looks like in practice by giving you a quick demo of our AI governance platform. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Elena Maran. I'm the Global Head of Financial Services and Responsible AI at Modulus, and I'm gonna take you through a short walk through Modulus governance platform to make you realize how this platform is being created with the needs of SMEs in mind to overcome all the hurdles that are currently facing. The speakers already mentioned, budget constraint, the difficulties of scaling compliance need with increasing requirements, and also the need to integrate these new requirements with the existing processes and existing tools. You will see how Modulus is the platform that can host different stakeholders along the governance chain inside the company, and how the platform can take you through the path that goes to conformity with the UAI Act, the best practices and standards and internal policies. So without further ado, let me share directly our platform. So let's start with a first need that you might encounter, which is that of documenting all the AI systems that you have in-house. What you can see here displayed in my screen is the catalog of all the AI applications you might have inside your organization. In line with what Kevin already presented, of one part of governance being the number of processes, roles and responsibilities, accountabilities at the organizational level, we smartly separated everything that has to deal with the oversight of single applications and products, and everything that has to deal with the organization as a whole. The UAI Act prescribes some requirements at the level of the organization to set up structures that allow an efficient, responsible AI development. And by doing this distinction, we allow organization to simply first set the organizational level and then enter into the specificity of the single products and applications. Now let's take an example of an application that might resonate to many of you listening today, which is an application in the field of HR, whereby we're using AI to screen CVs. And let's see how the Modulus platform can help us making sure this AI system is aligned with the requirements of the UAI Act. So as the first thing, I'm opening the project and I'm landing into a dashboard when I have a few summary information about my system. So the life cycle stage, a description, the progress that I've made in trying to align to all the requirements of the UAI Act. Unfortunately, here I haven't done much job yet, so the progress is at 0, but I've started populating some of the controls with some evidences. I can also see in my dashboard how different controls are distributed on the life cycle to help my life cycle management and what's their level of completion. I can have a global overview of all the risks that I've identified during the process and what's their priority for treatment. And finally, the different frameworks that I want to align myself with. In this case, I've selected the UAI Act, but the platform supports a variety of frameworks, including the ISO 42001, the ISO 27001, and potentially custom framework that you as an organization want to use internally. So what will be my first step? My first step, as Philip already anticipated, is that of knowing where I stand in terms of risk and what I need to do to comply to the UAI Act. So in the case the UAI Act is selected as a framework, we offer SMEs and companies a way to streamline that effort in understanding what controls and what requirements they should fulfill in order to become compliant. So they can utilize this questionnaire that will help them scope in their work and the scope potential requirements and controls that do not apply to them according to their role. Now, here you can see already the results, but the questionnaire would be looking something like this. Is a series of questions. You're going to go through the different questions, and in the end, you get the result that I showed you, and you will be only exposed to those requirements and controls that are relevant to your case. You are already seeing in your screen the different requirements, and our requirements have been further decomposed into controls. Controls are actionable items that you need to implement in order to fulfill the different requirements of the UAI Act. So going back to our concept of an HR application, I will be probably go through a number of different control, and I might be exposed to risks such as discrimination if my data collection process or my data quality is not representative of the different population that I want to deal with. So I might put a lot of care in those controls that ensure that the process is done in a responsible manner to avoid any risk of discrimination. So let's have a look how a control looks like. And in this case, data collection. Every control is basically a small atomic task that asks you to provide evidence of the fulfillment of the task that has been presented. You can upload some evidence in a manual manner with a simple upload, or programmatically using API and connecting to your development tools. In each controls, you are also allowed to associate to the outcomes of your control a potential risk. In this case, as the data collection process by the evidence seems to be preferring certain let's say, nationals of one specific nation instead of foreign passport holders, we might want to associate to discrimination risk this particular control. Now, going through the execution of the different controls, I might encounter some struggles. For example, I might ask myself, is what I'm doing enough to fulfill the obligation of the UAI Act? Let's open a control where I put already a bunch of evidence like the data bias prevention and mitigation, and let's use one of our agents in order to see whether this control has been completed properly. By activating this agent, I will be receiving a report that informs me, as per the readiness of such control, what are the gaps to execute it, and how I can eventually fill in these gaps through a bunch of recommendations. So let's suppose I've implemented a data bias prevention and mitigation plan, I've documented it, but there's still something that I need to do in order to complete the requirements of mitigating the bias. Now, this platform favors a full workflow whereby the technical stakeholders in my organization will be executing the different controls. They might have found bias in my data. They might have found a solution to mitigate such bias. But however, it's not their job that of evaluating the materiality of this potential discrimination risk that might arise from data imbalance. So what will happen? Each of these technical stakeholders, data engineers, data scientists will have associated their related controls and the evidence to the risk of discrimination in such a way that when the risk manager will enter the risk management system, he will be able to already see all the evidence that has been produced during the execution of the different controls and understand where is the risk coming from, what are the sources of risk, what are the elements signaling this risk, and make an evaluation of the impact, likelihoods, and detection capability of such a risk in order to decide whether this risk is within the limits of tolerability for the organization or whether further action needs to be undertaken in order to mitigate the risk. In case this is true and the risk is not within tolerability, the risk manager can use the facility of commenting and logging to alert the data science and the technical stakeholders of the need of mitigating such a risk. In turn, this data scientist in charge will go back to the world of controls, implement the bias mitigation strategy, and again, tag this bias mitigation strategy to the risk that we're seeing in such a way that when the risk manager will go back to the treatment of the risk, he can summarize the strategy that has been adopted, but most importantly, compare the level of treated risk with the initial level of risk and making sure the risk is now under control. During the life cycle and during the life of the application, things might go off guard, and something that was under control before, as measured by the fairness metric, in this case, for example, equal opportunity, might now no longer be in range. And this is why the platform also offered the possibility to test our applications and to, let's say, configure different tests that are connected to quantitative metrics and understand whether a change in the metrics will change the level of risk and have consequences in its tolerability. So let's perform the test live right now. Test now. If the test failed, the implication is that the control that has been associated to the test, in this case, data bias prevention and mitigation, is now associated with a failed test, which will alert the data scientist that has executed this particular control in order for him to implement a different strategy to bring back the risk in range. There's a number of other facilities that help us getting started on the platform. For example, when even before I start navigating through the different controls, I can already access my evidence tab here and start adding from the different materials that I might have about my project. So for example, these bias assessment reports, and utilize the agents which will guide me through the different controls and suggest the controls that this evidence can be used for, and also help me summarize the different pieces of documentation. So I hope you understood that the platform streamlines the process via agents, via questionnaires, reducing the amounts of work that has to be done in the manual work that needs to be done inside the organization, puts together all the relevant stakeholders and help you get into conformity. Now going back to the presentation, just to close, if you are convinced that Modulus platform, as I hope, can help you in aligning yourself to the UI Act, please make sure to scan the QR code. We have an available free starter plan for a limited period that you can access to, and you are always welcome to contact us at Modulus to discuss a plan that will be suited to the needs of your organization. Thank you very much.
Much, Elena. So if in the meantime there are still questions for you, I encourage our participants to put them in the chat, and then we will take them after the presentation, the final presentation from our colleagues from Awesome Compliance Technology. Dick, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Let me share my screen. Everyone can see it, right? Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we see the presentation. All good.
Perfect. Hello, everyone, and thank you for inviting me today. My name is Dick Stek, and I'm one of the co-founders of Awesome Compliance. And together with Marianne, who is our CEO and former corporate chief compliance officer in the domains of privacy and AI, and Roel, our CTO, we help SMEs to get their compliance needs sorted in a super fast and automated way. And Loredana asked me if I could tell you something about how our platform can help you navigate through the labyrinth of compliance and the European AI Act. And I think that's exactly in line with our mission. So, because we believe that legal and compliance expertise should be accessible and affordable for everyone, and not just for the big corporates. So our platform is a pick and choose compliance platform for startups and scale-ups that wants to land bigger clients and wants to get their house in order. And for those companies that already have some legal teams but are more overwhelmed with the tasks that are coming from the business to keep the day-to-day running. Because it's also one of the biggest challenges that we see in our market right now. It's like keeping up with all these regulations, it's quite overwhelming, right? Especially when you are not an expert, or when you're an SME and when you don't have the legal expertise in-house. And most companies never really get into the rhythm with compliance. They try hard, but there's a couple of things that we typically see, at least. SMEs, they want to be compliant, but they don't know really where to start or when they are finished. There are sometimes not even policies in place yet. Sometimes there are policies, but no one really reads or follows them. And either there's no legal team, or the legal team and privacy officers are overwhelmed, like juggling all those spreadsheets with clunky tools or expensive external lawyers. And especially with the European AI Act, companies are now facing even more complexity, because when you are handling or processing personal data within your AI systems, you also need to demonstrate compliance with the GDPR. So we think that most companies don't lack the effort. Every responsible company wants to be in line, and most even are actually actively trying, like tracking the regulations, writing policies, training employees, but they rarely build a scalable, tech-enabled foundation. And even when there are some tools in place, legal and privacy teams are stuck wrestling these interfaces. And in our opinion, tech that adds friction instead of removing it is leading to no one using it. And that's mainly one of the reasons why we built our platform. And as a founder myself, I want to be working on my business, right? Getting out there, focusing on growth, focusing on revenue, keeping my customers happy by exceeding their expectations. While I also know that in the back of my mind, that if I don't sort out my compliance, sooner or later, it's going to bite me in the ass. So my customers expect me to have my house in order, to handle their data with respect, and don't feed my AI systems with classified customer information. And they also want proof of that. So we've built a framework that's modular, from auto-generating your external-facing policies to showcasing these to your customers in an easy way, all the way to the more complex GDPR and AI Act registers, contract reviews, workflows, and on top of that, also some human legal advice. And if you are just starting, we also have all the compliance templates you need for you to get up and running. And as I think Philip already mentioned this as one of the presenters before, there are a couple of risk qualifications, right? So we categorize these into 4 categories: prohibited, high risk, limited risk, and no risk. And Awesome Compliance maps your AI tools against these risk levels and shows you the exact compliance requirements that apply and what you need to do in order to meet those requirements automatically. So for example, you might need to perform a fundamental rights impact assessment, or you may need to update your AI governance policy. The system helps you navigate and build these policies and perform these assessments for you. So you can actually focus on building your company and let us handle the red tape. So how does it work? It's an AI-enabled compliance platform that turns complexity into clarity. So we combine legal logic coming from the years of experience of my co-founder, Marianne, human-centered design. So SMEs, everyone should know how to work with this. You don't have to be a legal expert, combined with automation and AI. And we want companies to get compliant, generating your policies, setting up your registers, to proving your compliance to your customers by having a centralized trust hub for you to share externally, all the way to staying compliant with our built-in triggers, scheduled events, and some follow-up tasks. So you really onboard your organization, you define your goals, your org structure, your user roles, and you then assign tasks and assessments to teams or individuals. Or when you are just a startup, we help you to navigate to do this yourself. And you click in our system and manage library, what tools you are using, and you start setting up your GDPR and AI Act registers. It's really that easy. And from there, you have your built-in triggers, and you can create follow-ups and workflows or expansions if regulations or internal policies are changing. So Loredana asked me to speak a bit about our core features. So it's about regulation mapping and risk profiling. So where we help you identify what rules apply and how they affect your business. We auto-generate documentation, so that's like tailored policies like registers of processing activities or AI registers or risk assessments or data breach or DPIAs, all based on your company profile. We have all the legal templates in place for you to get started. And then we have our COCO, that's our AI-enabled co-compliance officer who is trained on the EU AI Act, GDPR, and some other frameworks. And she will help you to answer compliance questions in plain English so everyone understands, spot risks in your organization, and then supports decision-making in real time with already dashboards. And on top of that, we are also building different compliance courses. And in this specific case, we've built an AI literacy course to keep your teams AI literate, all with assessments and certifications. So yeah, your team will know how to handle their AI. For when your team uses ChatGPT, Claude, or Microsoft Copilot. Like with this course, you can demonstrate that your team meets all the European AI Act requirements. So your colleagues will learn what AI means under the AI Act, key legal AI Act requirements, how to use Gen AI tools responsibly, how to spot and escalate risks. And we've tried to make it really understandable and easy. So really compliant by design in plain language, so also non-expert friendly. So especially targeted on SMEs. So trackable and certifiable and pretty fast. So we try to keep it together with the workshop that Marianne gives under a morning for everyone to get AI literate. To close off, we really believe that none of this should be reserved for companies with the biggest budgets, right? So that only the corporates can use this. So if you want a more responsible and trustworthy digital world, then compliance must be accessible for everyone, from startups to institutions via SMEs to also corporates, because when everyone can meet the standard, then I think society benefits. And sure, it's great when compliance is invisible, but real accountability takes a little bit more than automation, is our opinion. And if you want a future where organizations are trusted, where tech is responsible, and people's rights and freedoms are respected online, then yeah, we have to build it. And I was asked by Loredana to keep it under 10 minutes today. So I hope I kept in line. If anyone is interested in learning more about how we can help your company specifically, or if you would like to see a demo, then yeah, please reach out to me on LinkedIn or at my email address. That's dick.sturk@awesomecompliance.com. Or if you have any questions for me or my co-founder, Marianne, who's also joining today, we are happy to answer them in the Q&A. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Indeed, this is a very good message to wrap up the webinar today. Thank you, Dick and Elena and Kevin for these presentations. It's great to see that they are SMEs that are there on the market already with solutions to support other SMEs. So thank you very much. Maybe we can have a look at the Q&A box to see if we have any questions for you. In the meantime, I will just mention that I've seen that you have shared in the chat your contact details. So if people want to follow up, they can find you at the contact details that you shared. Let's see what questions we have. Gilbert asks, in which of the AI Act categories are European SMEs mostly operating? Do you have numbers for each categories? I don't know if through the work that you are doing with companies, you have identified, let's say, any pattern at this point, Elena or Dick? Or any of the experts that are still with us, of course.
I can give it a try from our experience, and I'm happy to hear also from Dick as he operates in a similar setup. So in our case, we are encountering many SMEs that are crossing through high-risk cases. The one that I presented, they charge CV scanning, is an high-risk type of application. And given my personal background in finance, many of the SMEs operating in fintech or small financial institution or insurtech operate high-risk AI systems such as credit scoring or underwriting, all of which will require the full attention to the different requirements and controls suggested by the UI Act and the related standards.
Okay, thank you so much, Elena. Emilia?
I remember there was a study from the European Commission relating with where they see not only for the SMEs, but for all the industry, European industry, how they see the repartition. And we are expecting to have less than 1%, which will be on the prohibited one. And then we will have 3 to 5%. I will look for the study and I will circulate afterwards, which will be on the high risk category. And then we have the medium to low risk, which will be the large majority. Of course, that was before the GPI. So with that caveat in mind, I think we have a small percentage which will be on the high risk, but that can evolve. So be wise, prepare for compliance, because you do not know how the data that you are using might require that you also use personal data or you go in a high risk application. So be wise and prepare for that, as it is way less expensive to do preparatory work than to be subject to compliance. Thank you. That's all on my side. I let Dick and the others.
From our experience, most SMEs that we're working with are operating with a limited risk. So many of them are using Gen AI. Some of our customers are also building agents, of course. I think that's going to be for everyone in the near future. So like we don't have like the big data that you guys have, but based on our experience, it's mostly limited and some of higher. Yeah.
And the second question here is addressed to you, Dick. If Gilbert asks if he understands that you make a pragmatic translation from legal rules to business requirements. Maybe there's a, I don't know if you managed to unmute.
Or was that for me?
Yes.
Do I understand that you make a pragmatic translation from legal rules to business requirements? Yeah, as long as it's within the rules, yes. We try to make it very pragmatic, yeah, and understandable for everyone. So we have the legal expertise in-house, and based on those parameters, we make it very pragmatic for your business requirements. Yes, that's what we try.
Okay, great. Well, I encourage Gilbert to be in touch with you if you would like to learn more about the
Would love to.
You operate. Thank you so much. Then maybe to is there anything else? Any other questions? No. All right. Then maybe before we finish, since this work is a collaborative work together with our colleagues from EIT Digital, I would like to give the floor now to Carol to share some final remarks on her side as well.
Thank you so much. First of all, thanks for a great webinar. It was really insightful. And I would pick from where Dick has left that, you know, in order for us to make compliance really awesome, we have developed with collaboration the AI conformity tool. And could you hear me?
Yes, we hear you very well.
Okay, no worries. So, I mean, I just wanted to, you know, take just 1 minute to thank and to also highlight our collaborative work with Digital SME Alliance on that. It's free to use, and as Emilia has already given a good testimonial that, you know, you can go ahead, use it and see, you know, at least have a first understanding with respect to how compliant you are with the regulation. In addition to that, I would say that as EIT Digital and EITI community, we have a set of AI tools, whether it's about compliance or maturity or having the skills, from employee standpoint. So feel free to check out the entire suite on our website, and feel free to also reach out to us in case you need any help, any support from our side. And finally, just a small a shout out to Dick and Elena, because I see you as young entrepreneurs in this arena, and recently from EIT we have launched a EIT AI Founders Club. So if you could apply for those, I think it would be a great collaboration going forward on that. So that's all from my side. Once again, thank you everybody, and it was a great session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Farol. So this leads us to the end of the webinar. Just a few words to close. This webinar is only the first opportunity to explore the tools and solutions that are already on the market and are specifically designed to support SMEs. And indeed, our goal is to continue to empower innovators with the guidance and resources that they need to comply efficiently and help reduce legislative burden, ensuring that SMEs are indeed at the forefront of Europe's ambition to become the AI continent, like Anthony was mentioning earlier. So thank you very much for being today with us. And we look forward to hearing more stories and successful stories of compliance from our community. Thank you to the speakers, to the participants, and my colleagues today. Do you want to add another final word?
Just to remark the big thanks to the experts and speakers who joined us and gave their insights today. And indeed, thanks to you, Loredana, for organizing this event, and to all colleagues who provided inputs today. And of course, to all participants, we, as you said, would like to keep up with this good engagement and continue to engage with the community of innovators, of SME and entrepreneurs in digital, to keep up the good work and advance AI opportunities in Europe. Let's keep in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you.